celebrity actors in particular, the problem is that they spend their entire lives reading other people's scripts. That's why they suddenly come up with, some cause, whether it's the environment or gay rights. It's a, look at us, we're better than you. Most of them are as dumb as can be.
It really is quite a low percentage of people who are trans. I mean, it's really small. But in the celebrity world, it's extraordinary. Charlize Theron's kids, Cher's kids, Cynthia Nixon, Sting. There was a huge...
Jamie Lee Curtis is a fool. She's one of these celebrities who stands up and says, my children are at risk. They're going to be killed. That's why I feel I now have to showcase myself. I mean, there's never been a social justice movement in history that said, if you don't give our rights, we're going to jump into the river and kill ourselves. Hey, that's a really pathetic argument. Amputated breasts in a plastic bag with fake blood. To have a really popular, multi-award-winning show like Drag Race push that on mainstream TV is just appalling. It's almost tailor-made to be making the argument that homophobes used to make, which is that there's an agenda here.
What's a bit of your background? What's going on?
Well, I am a science documentary maker. So for 20, maybe more years, I've been churning out sort of blue chip, factual, high-end documentaries, mainly on science, history, biology, and so my perspective has always been, whatever the subject, to drill down into the factual evidence. I mean, I worked for BBC Horizon, and that was where I first sort of came across the whole sort of, as it was then called, transsexual movement, but of course there's now the LGBTQ and the transgender movement.
And I want to get going first. There's a lot of stuff. There's some stuff we talked about before that I'm amazed and shocked by. When we get onto them, but I want to start with a bit of a celebrity angle because this is showbiz. Have you been following what's been going on with celebrities endorsing their teenagers? What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I wrote a piece that compared the likes of David Tennant and Georgia Tennant, his wife, to the whole sort of mommy dearest sort of phenomenon.
What's
you
that?
know, Mommy Dearest, the camp classic. It's so camp, it's bad. It's the movie in which what's her name? The star that is taking the piss out of, big Hollywood star in the 50s, and the movie is effectively sort of saying that she was a monster.
Right.
But she was the star who went out there with the perfect family and the beautiful kids. She'd adopted them, and it was part of her branding, and it made her sort of seem like so wholesome behind the scenes. The movie said that she was an absolute horror and had beaten her kids. I'm not suggesting that any of the celebrities today beat their kids, but it's the same sort of exploitation of young people. And it's also, I mean, it's part of that whole phenomenon of not just their kids, but celebrities lecturing us on social justice is a bad enough problem. When they then pull in their children, it's a way. I think the problem with celebrity actors in particular, the problem is that they spend their entire lives reading other people's scripts, so they never get to say anything that's authentically them. And then, of course, that's why they suddenly come up with, some cause, whether it's the environment or gay rights or whatever, that they can then pin their name to as a sort of authentic, real statement about what I really believe. But most of them are as dumb as can be. I mean, they're charismatic looking and they can act really well, but that doesn't mean to say they know anything. Brian Cox is a fantastic actor. But he believes in Scottish independence and I've never heard him say a single sensible thing about why Scotland would take the risk of being independent. So there's no reason why, because somebody's a great actor, we should listen to them on politics or social justice or civil rights.
It's actually a really good point, and it's something that winds me up. I've been thinking about a lot recently. If an alien came down and they were like, what's a bit weird about this society or Western society, the extent to which we revere actors as good as they are. I mean, if nobody was saying anything, I'd say, oh, no, they're pretty good. But they are like the biggest, apart from sports stars as well. And sports stars actually really do have to work at something. Actors are just sort of pretending to be someone. I know some people will be offended who are watching who want to be sort of theatre actors and stuff. And I'm not suggesting it's not. I mean, it clearly is a talent. But is it any more of a talent than, writing the movies to me seems more of a talent.
I do. I mean, I've met only very few truly famous actors, and whether it's because they are revered or just because there is something there, they can silence a room, and they do have genuine charisma, that old sort of religious sort of idea. And I think that's part of it, because everyone who works around them is telling them that they're amazing and they're gorgeous and everything. And I think it gives them the confidence or convinces them that they have something spectacular to say about the world, but they don't. They just look fantastic and they have charisma.
I think it was Louis C.K. maybe. Someone was saying that they're an empty coffee cup and you pour a script into them. That's it. You have to have a lot of stupid people. And then some of them talk it up, don't they? Oh, I'm a method actor. And then you get some who are a bit more honest, maybe a bit more British about it, if I can say. You get I think Colin Firth has said a few times, Anthony Hopkins has said a few times, it's a job. I go in, I pretend to be someone else, I go home. It's not that hard. And I respect that a lot more.
You look at why should we think this generation of actors is any smarter or more sorted, given their social justice views, than the last generation? Marlon Brando was the big, spokesperson for Native American rights and all that. His family was a total disaster. One of them murdered the husband or boyfriend of his sister. Is now in jail. There were heroin addicts all over the place. All his Native American stuff turned out to be rubbish. The woman who came to collect the Oscar turned out to be a complete fraud. She was Italian. She wasn't Native American.
I didn't know that.
The whole thing was bunkum. So if it was bunkum, then how do we think that Jamie Lee Curtis is somehow, tapping into authenticity because she's got now let me get this right. It's a boy who thinks he's a girl, isn't it? In her case, and she had a cosplay wedding for her son and everything, and you just think, are you? And she has interviewed, Dylan Mulvaney or Alok, that crazy.
I know Dylan Mulvaney.
Dylan Mulvaney's bad enough, but there's Alok, who's the non-binary hairy guy that wears dresses and makeup and is just awful. I said some terrible things about child safeguarding, which is going to be my code word for you know what. And she interviewed him and talked to him as if he was.
I should say, because we had this discussion before, and you're talking about PDF files, as I call them, right? The child safeguarding. This person said a horrible thing about those people in parks who hang around and look at young people. You're not allowed to say the word on YouTube, but go on.
Exactly. So he said some appalling things, not to her, but in the past. That didn't mean to say that she didn't sit down with him, interview him, and talk to him as if he was, the new Martin Luther King. And so Jamie Lee Curtis is a fool.
Yeah.
And so why should I listen to her when she starts? She's one of these celebrities who stands up and says, my children are at risk. They're going to be killed. That's why I feel I now have to showcase myself and stand on a platform and make terribly serious comments.
It's interesting the point you made about Marlon Brando as well, because we're so often lectured to by people who have terrible home lives. And it is that, charity starts in the home. Get your life sorted. What is it? It's Jordan Peterson, isn't it? Make your bed.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, and people just don't do that.
And I suppose that's part of what they're trying to do. They're trying to say that they have got their lives sorted out. They are more tolerant, more liberal. Their kids are happier, more, freer than your children. And so in a way, it's just another way of celebrities to pull one-upmanship.
Fashion.
It's a look at us, we're better than you.
Yeah, yeah. And what about, David Tennant in particular, who is he? Because a lot of non-Brits might not know. And what's he said?
He's a great actor, TV actor, was one of the Doctor Who's, has said that his son is his daughter now, or is non-binary. One of his sons is non-binary, and part of. Nobody said anything about that, but he felt the need to then put himself forward and become the big spokesman for trans children across the world. And so he started wearing a series of T-shirts. One of them was something like, "Leave trans children alone, you freaks." And another one, and then of course he then went on, most recently at a LGBTQ awards ceremony. He was caught talking about feminists who were defending single-sex spaces and women's rights. He described them as moaning fuckers. And I mean, so dismissive, so contemptuous.
So anti-women, isn't it? And it's yet another person from the Harry Potter franchise. I suppose if you're in Britain, if you're looking at famous names in Britain, they've all been in the Harry Potter franchise. And you know what? A lot of people say they have a go at the Harry Potter kids for not standing by J.K. Rowling.
Was David Tennant in the...
Yeah, Barty Crouch.
Oh, right. I didn't know he was.
He was in one of the films. He had a funny his tongue was coming out a lot. Which is just a fact.
Great. Well,
yeah,
we should definitely listen to him then if his tongue was hanging out in one Harry Potter film.
But I'd say a lot of people do use that argument of like, oh, you wouldn't be anywhere without J.K. Rowling. And I don't agree with that because I think, well, okay, the writer of the film could have horrible views. It doesn't mean you've got to then have them. Yeah. However, I still don't think they're right. So he's come out.
In the case, I mean, I don't know enough about it, but in the case of the kids in the Harry Potter films, I mean, they were, their names were made initially by it. And Daniel Radcliffe, I have a real beef with. And he doesn't, as of yet, have a trans child that we know of. He's drumming his fingers, no doubt, waiting for the moment when he can launch a trans child. But he does a lot of work for the Trevor Project, in big LGBT charity that reputes to campaign against suicide in LGBTQ youth, except, as far as I'm concerned, the way that it operates actually promotes suicide, because all its surveys, it's a real problem that the LGBTQ movement now talks about suicide almost all the time. When I was doing gay rights and the whole gay rights movement, you will look in vain for a mention of suicide for the first 30, 40 years of the gay rights movement. We never said, oh, if we don't get our rights, we're going to go and kill ourselves. People would say, hey, that's a really pathetic argument for a social justice movement. I mean, there's never been a social justice movement in history that said, if you don't give our rights, we're going to jump into the river and kill ourselves. I mean, it is an appalling stance. But what it also does, especially since it's about kids, it's encouraging all these kids who are entering the movement to think that suicide is actually an option. It is something that you get attention for. It's an appalling way to sort of campaign for rights. So Trevor Project does all this, and Daniel Radcliffe is a big spokesperson for them. And he did this appalling video where he sat around with a whole bunch of binary and non-binary and trans young people. Hey, I want to know from you, how can I help you, was the whole stance. But then they went round, and all of these kids who seemed troubled were all on hormones of various descriptions. And you think, well, the one thing that they would tell you not to do 10 years ago, 15 years ago, if you have some mental problems as an adolescent, would be to take highly powerful hormones. And so you've got boys on estrogen, you've got girls on testosterone. Oh, surprise, surprise. They feel anxious, disturbed, and have, sort of real mental anxiety.
Does it speak of people like Daniel Radcliffe and David Tennant worrying about looking good rather than doing good?
I mean, the average person, if they were going to put their name to a petition, would do a Google to find out a bit more about it. The average person, if they were going to go to a public meeting and speak on behalf of a cause, would do some due diligence to find out about it. And yet these are celebrities with huge platforms that don't bother to do any research, that are unbelievably lazy about it, and yet want to pontificate to us.
I suppose in some respects, I think a lot of people have made this point, of course, that 10 years ago it was adopting a child from Africa. Now it's getting a
few people did. I mean, it wasn't that common.
Well,
And, you know, Madonna got away with it, but there was a huge storm afterwards.
Angelina Jolie.
Oh, did she? All right, okay.
I think I might be wrong about that.
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure they adopted from different kinds of places. And now with the trans thing, I just wrote a few names down because the trans, it really is quite a low percentage of people who are trans. I mean, it's really small, but in the celebrity world, it's extraordinary. Charlize Theron's kids, Cher's kids, Cynthia Nixon, Sting. There was a huge...
Jamie Lee Curtis.
Jamie Lee Curtis, of course, David Tennant, of course. Just it's absurd. So I mean, how can they not see that this is obviously then a social contagion of we're the better people because we're having this kind of fashionable thing going on?
Well, but you know, they know more about. I mean, it's like, you know, Emma Thompson cares more about the planet than anybody else. That's why she flies on a private plane from one side of the planet to the other to tell us about it. I mean, it's such hypocrisy.
Tell you what, though, she is a brilliant actress.
So is David Tennant.
No, but
I can't stand
she's next level.
I mean, you do have to disconnect from these characters. You know, Tom Cruise, I can't stand the Scientologist. I think he's a nutcase, has to be, but he's a great actor.
I've been saying this for a while, though, about Tom Cruise. It's the strangest thing in the world that for some reason, I mean, microaggressions, all these things, you're cancelled, you're a right-wing lunatic, you're this, you've looked at a woman when you shouldn't have done. I mean, a lot of the time, for good reason. There was a lot of men who were, all that stuff. There's a guy who pretty much heads up a cult. He might as well be the head of it. Yeah. Nobody cares. No one cares. He just does his thing.
Yeah. Well, yes. I mean, if you make money for Hollywood, it would appear that you know,
Hollywood makes money for him and for Scientology.
Yes,
but that is another thing. But I've got a thing with Scientology.
I mean, it's absurd that he gets away with it, and I mean, all the exposés. What's the Alex Gibney who did the documentary about it? Absolutely incredible.
Yeah,
and yet it somehow doesn't. As you say, if it was if it was a documentary about a celebrity who said one transphobic thing, boom, they'd be, cancelled.
He continues. And also the films he's making, he's now more and more in charge of them. He basically produces them. Every part of them is Tom Cruise. And they increasingly show him in a very Scientological way because it's him,
Is he wearing uniforms now?
Often he is.
Oh, really?
Well, he is. Of course, he's in the army doing all these different kinds of things.
Yes,
and then there are ones where he dies and comes back to life, which is a fundamental part of Scientology.
Yeah, of course.
Your body spirit goes into another body. Yeah. He dies.
Well, I'm a Deaton. I don't know about you.
It's just bonkers. I think I wonder to an extent, okay, these celebrities, they do live a weird life. They've got more money than they need by the time they're 20. And where do you go from there? Do you think there's something about the celebrity life then that, especially for the kids of celebrities, that encourages them to need to look and be different and looked at?
Well, I mean, it's all about, the question is is it a particular kind of person who wants and needs validation from people looking at them and applauding? Of course, it must be. And it's possible that psychologically a lot of, especially Hollywood actors, have psychiatric issues if they need that amount of validation from people. Obviously not all, but some must. And how are you going to get an extra layer of validation? At the moment, it's the environment and social justice, maybe race to a lesser extent. But trans is, although it's controversial for many of us, it sails through as a sort of unchallengeable subject in America where it really matters.
It's insane.
It's just like saying, I am kind.
Did you ever used to watch Absolutely Fabulous?
Oh, yeah.
So I've been going through it again because my wife is Argentinian, so I sort of introduced her to all the English stuff that she'd never seen, and we're loving it. And they were so ahead of the game. Jennifer Saunders, there's a bit that her daughter, who she hates, is pregnant, and she's being horrible to her, saying awful, and she realizes that the father's black, and she's going to have a mixed race baby. So suddenly she goes, oh, darling, sweetie, wonderful, because it's a prop, a fashion prop. Of course, yeah. This was 20 years ago. They brownie points, yeah. Yeah, and now you could obviously an abs fabs of today, it would be a trans child.
Absolutely.
Tell me about RuPaul's Drag Race. Now, what is that? Firstly, I know a lot of people do know, but some won't know. I
mean, I don't watch it myself much. I used to work, ages ago, again in decades, in an office where the entire team of RuPaul were a tiny little company in London and were just doing stuff for Channel 4 and everything. Randy and Fenton were the two producers, still are the executive producers of RuPaul, gay couple. But I mean, and for people who don't know, it's a competition between extravagantly dressed and the more bizarrely behaving, the better drag queens. And they do performances. They get judged by a panel. They say appalling things. They bitch about each other, etc., etc. It's very popular among young people, girls in particular, which is why it matters that what is on there. So recently they had a performance where a woman who thinks she's a man, a trans man, and has had her breasts removed, by the name of Gottmik, she came on doing an act in which her these fake hands were removing her breasts, and then she was wielding this bag of what were purported to be the bloodied breasts that had been removed. I mean, it was just, we know at the best of times that girls have body image issues, body harming, bulimia, all the rest of it. These are historically, have been around for a long time. The whole sense that you want to cut yourself off literally from your female body has just found a new way of expressing itself, which is in the whole trans man narrative, where girls think if I just remove my breasts or if I look like a boy, then I can just divest myself of this horrible sort of biology I have. So to have a really popular, multi-award winning show like Drag Race push that on mainstream TV is just appalling.
And this isn't you being prudish, really. It's not about, oh, there's blood on TV or whatever. It's the most vulnerable group, which I think is fair to say.
The blood on TV is an interesting point because there are actually really strict rules about surgery, blood on. I've done loads of medical shows. Loads of times I've been told you can't show that. That is too much because you're beaming into people's homes. And if somebody switches that on, and I've filmed open heart surgery, and it was great stuff. Most of it's never gone on TV because it was just too bloody.
I can't watch that.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay,
and so I don't think if you thought, would they be able, Drag Race or indeed any sort of entertainment show, to sort of joke about, open heart surgery or amputations or something, people would think, whoa, that is a wee bit strange. Here they are, amputated breasts in a plastic bag with fake blood. It's just, it's bizarre that it's thought to be acceptable.
For me, though, targeting it, I think we can agree that young women are probably the most vulnerable people in our society. I mean, I talk about this probably too much, but when I was in Argentina, I was looking into exorcism, and I filmed exorcism and all of that stuff, and it was amazing that the demographic fitted like a glove to the young women who are getting trans surgery now.
Oh, really?
Exactly the same thing. The gendered soul was a demon over there. And we would laugh. People here would laugh and go, God, what a silly culture over there in Argentina. It's the same thing. And the same thing if you speak out, you're seen as someone who hates God, who doesn't believe in it. So, and here, if you speak out, really you stop these women. There's obviously something about 15 to 20-year-old young women and girls that is making them feel extremely vulnerable. They're sexualized.
Well, it's no wonder. They just, not far from here, the private schools where girls, were, alleging rape, sexual harassment, the private schools had to investigate. There's a whole culture where boys own porn that they can get through the internet, and girls receiving all these messages that either tell them that the way to win approval is to be really highly sexualized, or, just try and opt out of it by saying, a lot of these girls say they instantly stop getting the male attention when they become a boy. Of course they do, and so that's sort of it shouldn't be the only two options for girls, that they're either to pursue the highly sexualized and be popular with the boys, or to deny their femaleness.
Or get your demon out as it was in Argentina. And so sad, these young women, and you want to reach through because you're supposed, as a documentarian, supposed to, as you're supposed to watch and help a little bit, but you can't be going in and saying, I did say afterwards, like, I don't, maybe you need therapy and you need to talk these things through, and you're going to feel better in a few years. It's a difficult stage right now. But at least an exorcism, although it is a terrifying thing to go through that might emotionally scar someone, at least it's not going to physically scar them in the way that, it sounds like, from reading your article, that RuPaul himself wasn't initially actually woke, was just a drag act who's been a bit forced into the woke side in recent years.
Well, yes, the woke part of it has been added on, through pressure.
God.
But the misogyny was always there. I'm not saying...
Okay.
Yeah, drag is fundamentally misogynistic. It's a huge, tall guy, Ru, who dresses up as a woman and then behaves in a highly sexualized way, doing things. If he was to do it as a guy, it might sound a bit more brutal, and therefore it's a demeaning portrayal of women. And it came out of before, he was, in the meat market area and everything. He talks about him, being a drag queen in the sort of really raunchy parts of New York.
What's the meat market?
It's the area in
New York.
In New York, where there were that was the actual meat market, but there was loads of clubs grew up near there, and they were rough and ready. And
what is the appeal then? And there's a lot of gay guys like drag. Is that fair to say? What is happening?
Apparently, yeah. I don't, but I know.
Are you a gay man?
Yes, I'm a gay man, but I can't stand drag. I never have been able to understand the appeal.
I imagine it's a minority of gay men who actually do like drag, but
I don't know. I think, hard to say, but a lot, because gay men are told it's their culture, and there are. Lily Savage was a fantastic performer who was interestingly never that I remember misogynistic, and he always used to say that he based his character on his strong Liverpool female relatives, and so he was, Lily Savage was rough and rude and full of one-liners, but you never got the sense he was taking the piss out of women.
Who was that other one? There was another one who's really funny who died also.
The Australian,
yes,
Dame Edna.
Dame Edna, yes, really funny.
Yeah, again, you never. He was taking the piss out of a particular type of woman, perhaps, but it was not woman as a whole.
Yeah.
And you never sort of thought this. It was such a caricature that you never really thought this was a representation of a biological woman. Same with Lily Savage, but the misogyny that's at the, whenever I used to go to gay bars where there would be, then a drag performer would come on, it is usually relentlessly about women and, bitches and, swear words and bodily functions. And there's a lot of misogyny there. Basically, my theory, untested, is that, there's a lot of misogyny in guys generally, and straight men get to express it in their relationships and their power relationships with women, and gay men don't have these relationships, and therefore they express it. They have this alternative theater where their male misogyny gets expressed in a performance. And what you've got in RuPaul is a global. He gets a rumored $1 million a show. It's a vast money-making machine, and it has normalized and made popular again misogyny. It's sort of like it's as if the Black and White Minstrels came back in a new rebranding that everyone said, "Oh, this is so cool! This is great! Oh, we love it!" And you said, "But no, it's racist." "Oh, no, it's not. No, it's not like the old racism. This is new, acceptable, woke racism." No one would buy that.
Imagine a million a show.
Yeah.
So I got sidetracked by that. Just imagining that.
Well,
gosh,
yeah.
What would you do?
I don't know if it's true. I've been told by 2 or 3 people close to it that it's true. Who knows?
Bloody hell.
Yeah.
Well, then you just, what do you need? Producers, more woke stuff? All right, throw it in there.
Yes,
give me 1.5
well, you're
million
definitely
now.
not going to take a stance on single-sex bases or the importance of biological sex if you're offered $1 million per show. Some people would, but he hasn't.
Everyone has a sort of number, don't they? Everyone has a number.
It would appear so, yeah.
They would then. And
I think the number could have been a lot less than $1 million before RuPaul would have surrendered.
Sure.
I don't think it was
what would your number
ever
be?
likely.
How much would you? What would the number be? Someone, here you go, and I'm going to just no longer ever talk about this again.
I don't think. I'm too old. I've got I don't have that long, 20 years or something. And I'm not going to shut up for the last 20 years of my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Put
But,
the 10 million
by all
check
means.
away. Put the check away for 10 million. He doesn't want it.
Yeah.
No, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
What do you do with it? What do you even do with it? All the money. But RuPaul, I mean, he was using the word tranny, and that was a whole big thing. People kicking off it.
Although trannies were using the word tranny. I mean, it wasn't like, it was no, I mean, it was, and who are the LGBTQ people to complain about the word tranny when they now say queer is the greatest new word in the world?
Yeah, I mean, 5 years tranny will be the word.
Yeah, exactly.
Well.
They'll be.
My theory here, and I think it's what you're saying really, is that people are bigoted and prejudiced in general, and in a society where there is a loophole, they will express it in that place.
Yes.
So they'll be like, okay, well, I'll just hate white people because right now you can do that, or I'm just going to hate women through this. Oh no, it's drag. It's a different way.
Yeah.
And I think that's it. And so in 20 years they'll look back and go, God, what were they doing? Maybe.
I don't know. I misogyny is pretty cooped in, and has been for a long time. And so it's not even that. I mean, it's the same as. They just put a new name on it, and it remains the sort of background noise, I think, in society, and they just find new ways to wriggle and allow themselves to be misogynistic. And in the case of gay men, drag has been the way to do it.
Yeah, that's it. The more I think about it, it is a strange thing. I see what you're saying about the misogyny. There's a link to Doctor Who, I think. Tennant is in Doctor Who. Tennant was asking an alien about his pronouns. What is this? I've never watched Doctor Who. My dad used to watch Doctor Who. What's going on?
Yeah, well, I'm maybe as old as your dad then, because I used to watch it. I mean, it was a great kids show. It's now, as woke as it can be. I couldn't watch. I watched it for about a microsecond and I had to turn it off.
Was it the alien? The alien pronoun?
No, there's a gay guy who's now, who's probably calling himself queer, who's now the doctor.
Oh, the fella from Sex Education.
Yeah. So I mean, I just think the public, the viewing figures have plummeted, and I think there's a sense generally, and that's why organizations like LGB Alliance, were set up. There's going to be a backlash. It looks like the other side is making all the progress and they're pushing and there are now the boundaries coming down. But behind this, I live in Glasgow, and that the majority of ordinary people are just biding their time. They're not particularly political. They'll put up with LGBT crap in their schools for a little while. They turn on the telly, it's another LGBT thing. They go to the supermarket, it's another pride celebration. There comes a point where they're just going to say, you know what, this really does feel like you're promoting homosexuality, the sort of stuff that gays and, transgender people used to be accused way back of having an agenda. You want to turn children gay. That was the big, accusation. And we managed to, get rid of that, claim and get rid of the people in the movement who really did want to do that. And who were very weak on child safeguarding. And, but now it's all come back, and it's almost tailor-made to be making the argument that homophobes used to make, which is that there's an agenda here, and it looks like it. There was this wonderful picture, wonderful in a bad way, about 3 years ago. The two people that the Biden administration sent to celebrate Bastille Day in France was the non-binary atomic expert Sam Brinton, who was later charged with stealing women's underwear from airports, and Rachel Levine, the assistant health secretary. And so there's this amazing picture.
Who's trans for people?
Oh, yes. Who looks like a bloke in a dress. I mean, there's nobody looks at that guy and thinks anything. Not bloke in a dress, bloke in a admiral's uniform, has never done a day's service in his life.
Really?
And
he's very overweight.
Yes, that's the
which
least
I
thing.
think,
For the health secretary.
You're the health secretary. You're appointing someone as Biden. You're saying, hey, we're going to we're making a message here because all the Trump guys, they think we're weak and pathetic. No, we're going to come in. Here's our health assistant. And it's somebody who doesn't know what sex they are and is overweight.
Yeah.
I think if they were just overweight, it wouldn't be an issue.
And is advocating, giving, it was later discovered only a couple of weeks ago that they had been arguing within the likes of WPATH, the Trans Health Organization, to remove all the limits at which children could be given hormones. So they could be given hormones at any level, any age, which is appalling. So, you could give a 6-year-old girl male hormones. I mean, it's just, it's absolutely appalling.
Well,
and that's the Assistant Health Secretary of the United States arguing for that.
Whoever made that appointment must be senile.
You would think. Well, no, they would be senile, but also have very close family friends who are trans.
Biden.
Yes, I mean, I've written before about the trans link with Biden is intimate and deeply personal because his son, who died of cancer, the person who worked in his office was a trans activist who's now a senator. After he died, Bo died. The guy who says he's a woman came to work for Biden. They're close family friends. And he's talked, the trans woman has talked about how they bonded the Biden family. Jill and Joe Biden bonded over the death of Bo. So they are so captured by the whole trans ideology.
Man, I didn't know that. That's really interesting. That's gonna give fuel to a lot of people. We have in the UK. A Labour government now. For those abroad, that's the lefty one, the Democrats sort of the UK. What are your early feelings with regards to the trans stuff, the gender stuff? What are they going to be more sensible than people thought?
Well, Wes Streeting, who's a gay guy, Christian gay guy, appears to be very sensible. He's made all the right moves and said all the right things, unlike Starmer. Wes Streeting, who's the health secretary, has said that he was wrong. Because he worked at Stonewall, the big LGBT charity, and he said he was wrong for ignoring the sort of complaints of women. He's finally got round to saying it was terrible that the Labour MP Rosie Duffield, who was bullied and trolled by trans activists, that was really wrong, and the Labour Party should have done more to defend her. And he's upheld the CAS review into puberty blockers, and subject to, there's a court hearing quite soon, but subject to that, he said that he's going to continue the ban, making puberty blockers banned throughout the NHS. So that's fantastic. I think there's a quid pro quo going on with the lobby, because we didn't hear any complaints from the big LGBT organizations about that. Loads of activists complained, but Stonewall didn't say a single thing about the fact that the health secretary had said there was going to be the continuation of the ban. And so I think they've done a deal behind the scenes on conversion therapy. So Streeting and the entire Labour Party has said that they're going to bring in a conversion therapy ban. That is such a complicated subject, conversion therapy. And I think it'll be difficult to educate the public and the politicians about what the risks are. You know all about the conversion therapy ban. I mean, it's an attempt. It's essentially telling children, telling parents and doctors that you cannot advise a child who thinks they've been born in the wrong body that might be a mistake. That there might be another or exploring other reasons why they feel disconnected from their body. The whole point of a conversion therapy ban is to ensure that the only response is that you affirm that child's statement. Oh yes, you are born in the wrong body. That effectively, bizarrely, means that a conversion therapy ban will promote conversion.
Yes. Because
there'll be loads of these troubled, often gay teenagers, not always, but often, who are confused. And if they can't go to therapists or get care that challenges them gently, respectfully, then you're baking in this delusion in their mind.
They're using, as you alluded to before, with regards to the idea of an agenda, they seem to be using a lot of the horrible parts of the gay civil rights movement, the parts of the horrible reaction and pushback, which was, oh, you guys all have an agenda, so now we can't say that about trans.
Yes.
Equally, the the gay conversion thing, which is, again, I think it's a horrible, barbaric practice. People are gay, they're gay, let them do their life. Horrible, and I've seen it happening in places like Ecuador. I was looking into that in Ecuador, and Ecuador, they banned it, and it actually got even worse because people started taking these kids, like kidnapping them from the church and sort of doing that. You know, like anything, you ban it, it can get worse. It's so complicated. But again,
that doesn't happen in this country. It's such a lie that it happens in this country.
Gay conversion.
Gay conversion. It can't happen. There's no register. There's no organization that registers psychotherapists that would allow someone. You would lose your license.
It could happen
in
churches, couldn't it? Or behind closed doors, churches.
Well, but exorcisms happen in churches. Are we going to go into churches and say, you can't tell somebody the devil's inside them? Oh, I mean, good luck. I mean, it's absurd. And so one of the things that this mad woman, Jane Ozanne, who is a lesbian who claims to have gone through an exorcism 40 years ago, which has never left her. She's an evangelical Christian. So, and she did a video where she said, across Britain, you know, young people are being beaten, raped, abused, locked in cupboards to try to convert them. And me and loads of other people said, any of these things are illegal. You can't lock people in cupboards. You obviously can't rape them. You can't beat them up. So it's just a downright lie that conversion therapy is happening in this country. Except in some nutty churches. But is that is parliamentary time in Britain going to be devoted to trying to police absolutely nutty churches that do nutty things all the time? I mean,
potentially, you don't want.
I mean, but potentially, but not at the risk of undermining therapeutic care for thousands of children. To save two people who are deluded enough to go to some crazy, sectarian church and then get shouted at by a pastor. To save these two people, we've to affirm the delusion in thousands of children. It's absolutely
can't
nonsense.
We just say we ban conversion of gay people, like anyone's sexuality, leave them alone. But however, people who think they're in the wrong body, that needs to be discussed.
Well, that was the compromise that gay organizations, LGBT Alliance and everybody else, the LGBT Alliance and everybody else said, it's not a priority, but if you're going to do the legislation, then that's what you should do. But nobody was... The joke is, Stonewall has existed for 30 years. It only started talking about conversion therapy 3 or 4 years ago. The gay movement, we got gay rights in 1967 in Britain. Conversion therapy wasn't an issue. When there was conversion, there was conversion therapy in the 60s, 70s, 80s. There were still crazy people doing conversion therapy. It's all been removed. It's all been made illegal. No hospital, no clinic would do it. No university would do it. They used to do it. Of course,
it's words, isn't it? It's
the gay conversion therapy is just a disguise to get the trans part in, which that is the story of the entire gay movement now. What happened is the gay movement is sort of the sheep's clothing. It's thrown over this dangerous, madcap, bizarre, unscientific movement, which is the trans movement. And these hollowed out organizations like Stonewall isn't a gay organization anymore. It only thinks about one thing, which is trans rights, even although nobody can define what trans actually means.
No.
And as for non-binary, I mean...
Oh, don't get... I always get really angry about non-binary. It's the one thing that annoys me more than anything. Because I think if you're going to have this theory of a man's a woman, or whatever, and maybe you've got some sort of psychological condition that makes you think that, let's have a discussion at least. I don't believe in that, but let's have a discussion. Non-binary, this idea I'm sort of better than everyone else because I don't have gender stereotypes or whatever, which is the whole point, that we're not supposed to have gender stereotypes.
You're non-binary, but you're gender fluid. I say, well, Okay, and literally, and then they'll say, "Oh, you're exaggerating when you say that there are some gender fluid people that say that they're male in the afternoon and they're female in the morning."
Oh my
Then you go
God.
online, and there are people who say that they're gender fluid.
Is that what that means? And gender fluid means changing
No,
throughout the day?
no, there are some people who say that they do that, and there's other people who are constantly gender fluid, and then there are people. I mean, there is no rhyme, no reason to this.
Just describing personality traits.
Exactly.
I feel dominant in the morning, and I feel women is.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the problem. All these old stereotypes get cooked back in. I'm feeling very irrational. I must be gender male just now. And wait a minute. I think maybe you've slipped into something there.
Yeah. I always say, okay, tell me what it is. You say you're a woman to a man. You say that you actually are a woman. What are some of the traits? Because we need some empirical evidence. What are some of the traits? I've never had. They always say, "Oh, well, it's a social." I can't.
Well, they've now got wiser because it was so obvious the stereotypes. So up till about 3 or 4 years ago, you will still get men online who say, I mean, there's a guy that's got a column who was David Taylor, who was a men's rights activist, public men's rights activist, thought feminism had gone too far. Then, when he started to go bald, funnily enough, about 5 years ago, decided he was a woman, and he's now Diana Taylor, and writes a column in the Telegraph. And he has written things about, oh, I wake up and I feel so emotional. I know I'm a woman.
Oh my God.
I mean, it's just unbelievable.
Is his hair growing back from the estrogen?
Well, I'm not sure. I think it's a wig. But it's a big old wig. Yeah, it does sometimes. Yes, absolutely.
Have you lost your hair? It's not shaved?
No, it's nothing to do with my hormone. My baldness is all natural.
I just think we could get you some estrogen.
Yeah, it's the tits I'm worried about. I don't think I would suit them.
I think they look great.
If I did suit them, I would do it, but I don't think I would suit them.
Would your body hair fall out from the estrogen as well?
I don't know why you're asking me.
I'm just imagining you as a lovely lady.
Oh, really? We can talk about that later.
Yeah, we will after we finish filming. No, tell me. I'm joking, everyone. Tell me because you have to say that on YouTube.
You never know. Yeah, that was sexual harassment.
You know what? A friend of mine, Sean Atwood, he's a nutter, true crime kind of guy. So different sort of YouTube, but he's become a good friend. And he's nuts. And he went to my wedding recently. And there's a photo of me and him, just like, and it looks like we've married each other. And obviously, I mean, most people, the one or two on his channel, he's put the photo up, and there's people going like, "What? You've turned gay? I'm not following this channel anymore." Really? Yeah, that's what's out there. Yeah.
Oh, I'll be losing you loads of viewers then.
Yeah. Well, that was his channel. My channel does not have homophobes on it. His channel's, he's when you're in the whole,
yes.
It's a different, he's mad.
Different demographic.
Different demographic. I hope. Don't be homophobic. What is, and this is a new word for me, Apotemnophilia.
Oh, well, I have talked about that a lot, so I won't say too much about it. But it's one of the reasons I got involved in the whole subject was I was asked to make a show when I was at Horizon, or to contribute to making a show by filming. This is 24 years ago, and I didn't really know much about trans stuff then. I would then work with April Ashley, who was a big, the trans model and everything. So I've spent time with trans people. But I didn't know much then, and I had to go and film a guy in Germany called Hans, funnily enough, who was wanting to have his leg chopped off. And there's a whole bunch of people, Apotemnophiles, who fantasize about having one or more of their limbs removed. Some of them are turned on by amputees. Some of them are turned on by the idea of themselves being amputees and mixy-matchy. Some are gender fluid, some are amputee fluid, and so what I was doing there was following this guy. And what was interesting was that all the experts who described this, first described it scientifically, studied it, and gave the psychiatric go-ahead for that to happen. The two guys had their legs removed up in Scotland, in an NHS hospital. They were all in the transsexual world. They were all gender identity specialists. They were all gender identity experts. And in the film, the biggest expert in Britain on things transsexual or transgender, as we would now say, Russell Reed, he said this brilliant line where he said, "Well, I used to think it was strange, But we let transsexuals chop healthy parts of their bodies off, so why shouldn't we let them chop their limbs off?
Wow.
And that for me crystallized everything, because I thought, well, no, it's absolutely insane to chop your leg off. So ergo, it's insane to chop your knob off or your breasts off. And I think that's I've never really lost that sense that I think society keeps drifting, thinking, oh, well, if people want to chop their bits of their bodies off, it's all okay, personal determination. You can't, if you encourage and validate people chopping bits of their limbs off and give it a sort of halo of social justice, liberation, you will really screw with children's minds. And that I think is inevitable.
I've got, Richie Herron I'm interviewing tomorrow.
Oh, great. Richie's fabulous.
And he talks about waking up literally the moment he woke up from surgery, firstly being pushed into it by doctors, zealous doctors, and then waking up and then immediately regretting it.
Yeah.
Immediately looking down between his legs and go, what the hell have I just done? And how have the adults in the room here not just allowed it, but pushed me into it?
Yeah.
Christ almighty.
No, it's
insane. Do you think some of the just dysphoria, I know that we can't know everything about psychology and everything. Do you think that some of this dysphoria might be related to that urge to get rid of a leg or an arm?
Yeah. I think you were talking about the exorcism stuff. There's the really great piece in Tom Holland's book, The Historian, not the actor, about Christianity, Dominion, which talks about how in every generation, well, not every generation, but in periods of history, because of Christian thinking, we've always looked for the ultimate victims. It was the slaves, it was the lepers, in the civil rights movement. It's this idea in Christianity, you will lift the weakest will become the strong. And so there is a constant thing. And I think when you run out of people to lift up, you eventually get to trans people. But there is this Christian, the whole thing about the broken body of Christ, the sacred body of Christ, hanging in there's something, I think these ideas don't immediately disappear once you get rid of Christianity. They're still floating around. And I think that idea that trans people that their suffering is redeeming them, and the pain they go through makes them heroes. It's all derived from our Christian background, I think.
I wonder if it goes back further to evolution.
It could well do, yeah. Yes, absolutely.
I just think maybe tribes might have succieded if people refreshed who was on top.
Yes.
Quite often. Lift people up who are on the bottom, try to help them. And it must have been some sort of biological
a lot of Native American tribes, there was a lot of painful, coming of age rituals as well. And it's interesting that we're not really talking about, there are creepy old guys who want to wear dresses. That was how the trans movement started. But now it's all about adolescence.
Young women.
Young women, but young boys. It's but adolescence has always been the period where children becoming adults, going through rituals, going through pain, going through suffering, proving themselves. And so, it's not that much of a surprise that actually all these ideas are circling around adolescents who are going through, puberty is a difficult time at the best of times. And so what we've replaced is the normal adaptation and pain and emotional turmoil of puberty with this medicalized technological version of it, where we say we'll stop your normal puberty, but now you'll go through a trans version of it. Very bizarre.
Yeah, and you're right. Richie Herron's one of the boys as well. A lot of boys.
Yeah.
A lot of boys are gay or autistic.
Yeah.
A lot of girls, not necessarily.
Yeah.
What almost blew my mind because it was so obvious, and I hadn't noticed it. Mia Hughes.
She's great. Yeah.
Yeah, and she said, if you're wondering whether it's just a social contagion for young girls in particular, tell me, where are the older women who are saying, God, I wish there was an open society so I could have transitioned? You don't see them.
No.
I never heard of that.
Yeah.
Never heard of a 50-year-old woman going, God, I wish I'd transitioned when I was younger.
Yeah. And it's interesting that there were older women who transitioned. Jack Halberstam, who was Judith Halberstam, is a big trans activist. But it's really interesting when when you hear from them, they are so much more nuanced about the whole process compared to the guys who sort of like, oh my God, I feel like wonderful now. I'm a woman. You know, Jack Halberstam has talked really movingly and has warned that she calls himself he, but she thinks that too many girls are being pushed into it too quickly. And I always think it's typical that a woman trans person would be more caring and nuanced than some bloke who's all about himself and he's wearing a dress and he can go anywhere he wants now.
Buck Angel's similar.
Yeah, but it's interesting. Yeah, Buck is really worried about, and the other the woman with the family.
Oh, I don't know. Oh, Caitlyn Jenner.
No, Steve Nugent. Yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, there's 3 or 4 big trans men, i.e., women, who've either had families or are just more connected. I mean, Jack Halberstam has said that, you know, it's young, and she points out it's young. She says young cis girls, you know, basically girls.
Yeah,
young cis girls go through so much, and the levels of suicidality in young normal girls is as high as any other group. But nobody talks about, there's a lot of suicide in young cis white girls because they don't have the special brand, the special halo that we're giving them now.
And there's no agenda to push.
Exactly.
I've got one more question for you, but first tell me, where can people find your work, follow you and that stuff?
It's Secret Gender Files. It's a Substack, and it's only £5 a month. And you can also subscribe free.
Okay, we'll put it in the description.
Good, great.
And so people, please do support you, of course. And tell me, who is a heretic you admire?
Do you know, can it be a collective?
Yep.
LGB Alliance. Now, it started by 2 lesbians who'd had enough. Kate Harris and Bev Jackson. You should have them on. And they
British based?
They were fantastic. They're British based. Well, one's in Holland, but she's over here all the time. We can't seem to keep her out. And they're great. They decided. And when we first met in 2019, it had to be, you know, locked doors, high security, so secretive in case we were picketed. You know, now, you know, they get to meet ministers and talk to politicians and everything. Oh, yeah, they've changed a lot. Yeah.
I wonder if we'll be able to sort of talk public. Then the show won't be heretics anymore. We'll have to find something else.
Mainstream establishment. It's not got the same ring, has it?
I know, but it could be quite fruitful, though.
You know, yeah. Well, if you're looking for sponsorship,
I'll be on This Morning.
All the people that sponsored mermaids will now be available.
Oh, that'd be great.
That'd be lots of money.
People, please go check out, what was your Substack called?
Secret Gender Files.
Secret Gender Files. Check it out. There'll be a thing in the link. Support my wonderful guest. I'm on the Substack as well. Support both of us. Have a look at what's going on and all of that. And hit the like and keep on watching this channel.